Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Transmigrated and Taking Over Ichigo's Body, last part. And What If Becoming a Mangaka in One Piece World, 2 parts, will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next 2 projects for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if hosting Q&A in One Piece World? What if Transmigrated in Ben 10 World as Ben's cousin? What if Transmigrated in Danmachi World with the system? Please vote in the poll and let me know which stories you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 271 What Other Commission? Ikumi looked at Ichigo strangely. With a sudden break, they arrived at Anagi's shop. This abrupt stop nearly caused Ichigo's forehead to have zero-distance contact with the car window. Ichigo quickly changed his clothes and waited inside the Unagi shop for today's customer. "Grandpa, take care." Ichigo supported a kind-looking old man, seeing him outside. The old man's request was to remove a wasp nest outside his second-floor window. The shop owner decided to handle it personally. Returning inside, Ichigo glanced at the wall clock, heated the pot with oil, and started making ramen. Not long after, as expected, a figure entered the shop through the corridor at the anticipated time. "Hey, young man, what a coincidence! It's you. So you work here?" Jinjo, who had crossed paths with Ichigo the previous day, appeared at the shop where Ichigo worked. Ichigo knew it wasn't just a coincidence. This person must have some method of tracking his whereabouts. These past few days, whether at home, school, or on the road, he had constantly felt a vague sense of being watched. If his powers weren't sealed, he could definitely find the source and understand the surveillance method. Now, however, he was completely in the dark, forced to endure the surveillance without any means of countering it. But it didn't matter. Jinjo's control over the situation was in the open, while his was in the shadows. Whether Jinjo monitored him or not made little difference. Most importantly, the other party was unaware of this. Seeing this expected guest, Ichigo breathed a sigh of relief. If they hadn't come any later, the ramen would have passed its optimal flavor moment. "Yes, what a coincidence. How may I assist you?" Ichigo's face showed just the right amount of surprise. "First, give me a bowl of seafood ramen," Jinjo said cheerfully. Beneath his hearty appearance, what sordid intentions lay hidden remained unknown. "Here, please enjoy." Ichigo had just placed the ramen on the serving tray and delivered it to the table before Jinjo. "Ah, Ichigo, is this what you cooked for yourself?" Jinjo looked apologetic. "Haha, if I said I knew you'd come to the shop, would you believe me?" "Ichigo, you sure know how to joke." Jinjo, of course, didn't believe it, thinking Ichigo was just joking. How could an ordinary person with no abilities know he would come today? Moreover, Ichigo was under his surveillance almost 24/7, except for bathroom breaks. Jinjo inwardly scoffed, but on the surface, he laughed heartily at Ichigo's joke. "Try my ramen. How's the craftsmanship?" To be honest, Ichigo had put considerable effort into this bowl of ramen. The carrots and other ingredients in the ramen were all meticulously cut by Ichigo himself. Because during the vegetable cutting process, the feeling of wielding the knife with ease and the use of the blade felt very comfortable to him. Ichigo, I never expected you to be such a skilled ramen maker. Really good." Jinjo slurped several large mouthfuls, swallowing noodles while giving Ichigo a thumbs up. Ichigo didn't know if it was genuine or not, but psychologically it felt satisfying. Ichigo used a hot white towel to clean his hands and sat opposite Jinjo. "You probably didn't come just for the ramen, right?" What other commission do you have for the Anegi shop? Jinjo put down his chopsticks, his expression turning serious. The atmosphere in the shop instantly changed. Jinjo stared intently at Ichigo's expression. I want to commission the Anegi shop to investigate someone. Jinjo pushed a photo in front of Ichigo. Ichigo picked up the photo, his pupils suddenly contracting sharply. The photo was taken from not too far away. It showed a robust middle-aged man with a full, manly beard around his face. At the moment of the photo, the man was looking to the right. The reason Ichigo was shocked was that the person in the photo was none other than his father, Kurosaki Isshin. Seeing the person in the photo, Ichigo abruptly raised his head. Who exactly are you? Why investigate this person? Jinjo, who had been watching Ichigo closely, finally took a sip of tea and said, Son of Kurosaki Isshin, how much do you know about your own father? Jinjo deliberately revealed this information to unsettle Ichigo's mind. Combined with subsequent actions, the ultimate goal was to apply sufficient pressure on Ichigo, pushing him onto the path of learning full bring. Jinjo added pressure at this moment. Don't get agitated, Isshin's son. You'd better go take a look at Urahara's shop. There are some interesting things there. After saying this, Jinjo pretentiously left, acting mysterious. To avoid exposing himself, Ichigo could only lower his head, staring at the photo on the table, maintaining the feeling of having his peaceful life suddenly torn apart. Jinjo, who happened to glance back and see Ichigo like this, chuckled lightly and sauntered away. Once the person was far gone, Ichigo raised his head. Now, no trace of surprise remained on his handsome face. It's time to visit Urahara's shop. I wonder what progress Kasuke has made in his studies. Urahara's shop. Today, Urahara's shop received a guest familiar to Kasuke, but one who didn't visit often. Karen, you're here too? Ichigo, with his hands in his pockets and having kicked off his shoes after entering, discovered his sister was here. Brother. Karen called out to Ichigo, though there was some confusion in her eyes. Connected by blood, she felt her brother wasn't very surprised to see her here, or perhaps not at all. Karen, wait a moment. Karen brushed aside her confusion and obediently stopped. What did you buy? She hid the bag behind her back, not letting Ichigo see. Looking at Ichigo's kind smile, Karen felt as if she had been seen through. And nothing. Ichigo didn't press further. Coming before his somewhat nervous sister, he reached out towards Karen's chest. Karen's eyes widened instantly, following Ichigo's hand as it moved to her chest. Karen stopped breathing, her body stiffening. Bro. The young girl's voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Karen's chest was like small buds, with only a slight curve. Ichigo's fingers plucked a strand of hair from Karen's collar, looking somewhat strangely at Karen's flushed face. What's wrong? There was a strand of hair here. Why is your face so red? Chapter 272 Misunderstanding Karen. Knowing that she had misunderstood, Karen's head steamed with heat. She turned, pulled open the sliding door, and ran away. Running down the street, Karen alternately called herself idiot again and again, questioning how she could have thought such things. Could it be that I was actually a perverted girl? The moment this thought arose, Karen became agitated. No, that's not it. It's all because Oniai's behavior these past few days has been too strange, always secretly taking mine and Yuzu's clothes. That's why I came up with that association. Karen thought, her face flushed red. Ichigo found himself increasingly unable to understand these adolescent girls. But he had come here today for serious business, not because of Jinjo's deception. In the original work, Jinjo deceived Ichigo into focusing on his father, Isshin, making Ichigo go to Urahara's shop. After being influenced, Ichigo went to Urahara's shop. Upon arriving, through secret observation, he discovered his father and Kasuke seemed to be plotting something. Because their movements appeared quite suspicious at the time, Ichigo had a seed of doubt about Kasuke planted in his heart. He could no longer determine whether the other party was good or bad. In reality, The two were merely discussing with Rukia how to help Ichigo recover his Shinigami powers. However, in Ichigo's case here, Rukia knew his specific situation, while Isshin and Kisuke, who were often in the living world, did not know his circumstances. Not many people in the Soul Society knew his actual situation either, only Captain Commander Yamamoto, Captain Unohana, and a very few others. Dad, I'm sorry, but I still can't tell you about these things. Thinking about this man running around everywhere for his sake, Ichigo felt apologetic. But there was no other way. The more people who knew, the greater the risk of his plans being exposed. Those who knew the truth about his situation were unlikely to expose it. After all, they were mostly at the Soul Society. Although Unohana was somewhere in the living world, she was not only powerful herself but also with Tsuraki, giving her top-tier safety. Urahara's shop had a basement, which Ichigo himself had paid Kisuke to build. Inside were no others, only one teacher and one student. Nozomi was inside learning soul modification technology. Ichigo gave all the hair he had collected to Nozomi, asking her to help create Reigai of his sisters and Tatsuki, among others. Because Tatsuki and the others were ordinary people, Nozomi could create them. However, for Chad and Oriheim, whose internal powers belonged to Fullbring, Nozomi was unable to create their Reigai. But this was enough. Ichigo's original purpose in doing this was merely to feel less disgusted when Tsukishima tried to provoke him. If Tsukishima really did something that angered Ichigo, Ichigo would make him experience a happy life like Inaba's. Nozomi's efficiency was extremely fast. The day after Ichigo entrusted Nozomi, his home door was knocked on. When Ichigo opened the door, he saw his sisters, Karen and Yuzu. The two greeted Ichigo upon seeing him, and simultaneously, their eyes flashed slightly, with electric arcs flickering around them. Oni-chan. Ichigo looked at them a few times. Aside from their eyes, he really didn't notice any flaws. Their eyes could be controlled voluntarily. This was just for Ichigo's convenience in confirming their identity. Good. Ichigo nodded satisfactorily and led the two inside. This way, he could ensure that when Tsukishima and Jinjo tried to provoke him through loved ones, his sisters wouldn't be harmed. Days passed one by one. Both Jinjo's and Ichigo's plans progressed in secret. During this time, Ichigo's loved ones, Chad, and even Oriheim were harmed one after another. Now, when Chad, Yuryu, Oriheim, and others discussed certain things at school, once Ichigo approached, they would immediately end the topic, and even disperse. Ichigo looked at his distant friends, a flash of loneliness in his eyes. In reality, Ichigo knew they just didn't want him involved in dangerous matters. Ichigo's outward emotions appeared quite depressed. From a distant high-rise building, a pair of eyes took in all of this. Lowering the binoculars revealed Jinjo's bold face, showing a sinister smile. He knew the opportunity was about to arrive. After Jinjo left, Ichigo thoughtfully turned his head. An abandoned high-rise building came into view. The building's exterior walls were pale, over 50 meters tall, one of the few tall structures in the surrounding area. The peeping gaze he felt earlier probably came from one of the countless black, empty windows. Though he didn't know who it was, perhaps someone secretly concerned about him, or perhaps an enemy observing him, Ichigo knew he didn't need to confirm the other party's identity. Things would definitely proceed according to the predicted direction. At this stage, his and Jinjo's goals were, for the time being, aligned, belonging to the same direction. Days passed peacefully, and Ichigo's game time also passed day by day. In between, Jinjo had suddenly appeared, helping Ichigo deal with a hollow they encountered by chance. At the time, Ichigo was walking with his sister Yuzu. Having lost his powers, he couldn't see where the hollow was. Even though he lacked no courage, he still appeared powerless against a genuine supernatural force. Damn it! Ichigo watched helplessly as Yuzu, holding his arm, was suspended in the sky. He held an iron pipe but couldn't see the hollow's location. Why isn't that bastard Jinjo coming yet? If he doesn't come soon, I'll be exposed. Ichigo had thought it out well, using Reigai to replace his friends and family to avoid them getting hurt. But in the concrete event, Ichigo suddenly realized the problem. Although these Reigai perfectly replicated Karen and the others, their physical constitution was also that of fragile, ordinary people. If they were harmed, and that old schemer Jinjo insisted on waiting until the most critical moment to act, then having the Reigai with him carried the risk of exposure. Because Reigai turn into white smoke upon death, unlike ordinary people. Although he believed Jinjo's strength was enough to handle an ordinary hollow with no problem, what if Jinjo misjudged the timing and let the Reigai suffer severe damage? The Reigai would then directly turn into a wisp of white smoke. Chapter 273 A Little Impatience Spoils Great Plans. At that time, the Jikongan of Karen would fall out. How would Jinjo, seeing this scene, think then? At that time, Jinjo would be directly startled like a snake in the grass. Not only would he temporarily not appear before Ichigo, but he would definitely investigate this matter in secret. Then Jinjo would discover that many people around Ichigo had been replaced. Why were all these people around Ichigo replaced? Who was doing this? Could it be that besides them, there was a third party? Reaching that point, Ichigo felt that with Jinjo's intelligence, even if he didn't know the truth, he would probably find another way to achieve his goals. Ichigo didn't dare gamble. At that time, he might not have another chance to gain the organization behind Jinjo teaching him full bring wholeheartedly. Jinjo, you'd better pray I'm not someone who holds grudges. Ichigo's skin was scraped in several places, yet that bastard Jinjo still didn't intervene from the shadows. To prompt Jinjo to save Yuzu sooner, Ichigo could only make himself appear more powerless and miserable. Yuzu, wait for me, I'm coming to save you! On the empty street, a girl was suspended in midair by an invisible entity holding her arm, looking panicked at the boy not far away. The boy held a steel pipe, constantly charging towards the girl's direction. Facing such supernatural power, the boy showed not a trace of fear, displaying extraordinary courage. But even so, an invisible wall bounced the boy back again and again, preventing him from getting close to the girl. Oni-chan, run! The girl in midair desperately urged the boy to flee, but the boy stubbornly charged towards her again and again. In the distance, a tall figure silently watched all this unfold. Jinjo wasn't surprised by Ichigo's brave display. After all, such a hollow, in Ichigo's past, might not even count as cannon fodder, so naturally he wouldn't fear it. But now, having lost your power, you can only watch the other party cause trouble for you. That feeling must be terrible, right? Jinjo's lips curled up, filled with the pleasure of manipulating others. Kurosaki Ichigo, experiencing the feeling of having no power now. I'll let you experience it a bit more. Jinjo indeed followed Ichigo secretly, as Ichigo anticipated. Jinjo wanted Ichigo to feel more of the powerlessness of having no strength, to better provoke him onto the path of full bring. At this moment, Ichigo, charging at the hollow once again, finally angered it. The hollow raised its hand, and Ichigo flew out like a ball, landing on a car at the street side, creating a dent. Yuzu! Jinjo appreciated Ichigo's pained expression, watching that extreme powerlessness completely shatter that handsome face. It's about time. Things are almost certain now. Just as the hollow was about to kill the Reigai Yuzu, a large two-handed sword pierced through the hollow's body. The Reigai Yuzu fell from the hollow's fingers to the ground, caught tightly by the arriving Ichigo. Jinjo resumed his righteous expression, swiftly dealing with the hollow that had troubled Ichigo. He turned to look at the siblings embracing behind him, quickly walking forward. Are you two all right? Ichigo barely managed to suppress the killing intent in his eyes. This bastard must have enjoyed watching me make a fool of myself earlier, right? Endure. A little impatience spoils great plans. Ichigo gritted his teeth, tightened his embrace around the Reigai Yuzu, and took a deep breath. The girl's fragrance calmed Ichigo down. In Jinjo's eyes, his actions were merely those of someone who had narrowly escaped danger, grateful that he and his sister were unharmed. Brewing some emotion, Jinjo appeared very concerned, squatting urgently beside Ichigo, brows tightly knit as he looked at him, while inwardly laughing. How about it, Kurosaki Ichigo? Realize the importance of power now? Then come learn Fullbring soon. Ichigo, you and your sister, are you alright? A broad, large hand rested on Ichigo's shoulder. Ichigo felt a force slithering in along the other party's hand into his body. However, this force retreated upon contact, probably just probing the condition inside him. Otherwise, the Hogyoku would have alerted him. I'm fine. Thank you so much this time. Ichigo looked up, forcing a smile at Jinjo. Jinjo shook his head sincerely, handing Ichigo a black card with a phone number recorded on the front. If you want to have the power to protect those you care about, call the number on this. Ichigo silently accepted the card with the phone number, not saying anything. He was considering whether he should proceed to the next stage now. It would be perfectly reasonable for him to request learning Fullbring now. The sooner he learned Fullbring, the sooner he could return to training with Zaraki. He was racing against time now. Every moment was precious. There was no point wasting time on this back and forth mind games with Jinjo. Seeing Ichigo silent and not immediately responding, Jinjo didn't press further. His broad hand patted Ichigo's relatively slender shoulder a few times. This world isn't as simple as you or I imagine. What happened today isn't something only you've encountered. Our very existence is proof. Without the protection of power. Jinjo left it at that. He knew very well that Ichigo understood the true nature of this world perfectly. He said this merely to remind Ichigo that this world was very dangerous. Without power, scenes like today's could still happen tomorrow or the day after. Of course, if they didn't, he would actively make such things happen. Ichigo understood Jinjo's full meaning, remained silent for a moment, then nodded. I understand. Seeing Ichigo soften, Jinjo was inwardly delighted, however his face remained very composed. Jinjo pretended to feel heartache looking at the wounds on the Reigayuzu. Do you need me to help take your sister to the hospital? Ichigo shook his head. No need. The injuries aren't severe. I'll treat them myself when I get home. How dare Ichigo let the Reigayuzu be alone with Jinjo? Jinjo would definitely probe the Reigayuzu then, perhaps even leave behind some means. If Jinjo were to discover something by chance, it would be bad. Although he had many ways to explain, in the end it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. If stable was possible, then go with stable. Learning Fullbring safely and steadily was the most important thing. Chapter 274. The setup is almost complete. Of course, if Ichigo felt the Fullbring he learned wasn't very good, wasting so much of his time and planning, then he would inevitably show the dagger at the end of the scroll and teach Jinjo and the Skyushin members a lesson. At that time, Ichigo would deepen Jinjo's understanding of the importance of power. Another 2 peaceful days passed. Ichigo felt the timing was about right, as a 2-day transition should fit Jinjo's psychological expectations. If he didn't call soon, Jinjo would probably come to provoke him again. Learning Fullbring, it's today! Although he hadn't completely followed the original plot, his setup was almost complete. Contacting Jinjo at this point shouldn't arouse the other party's suspicion. TSK, I wasted almost a week and more. Jinjo, you better teach me well. Ichigo took out the black card he kept close and dialed the number on it. The phone rang a few times before being answered. A steady male voice sounded in Ichigo's bedroom. Hello? It was Jinjo's voice. On the other end of the line, Jinjo had been waiting for this call for a long time. Finally receiving Ichigo's call, Jinjo leaned back comfortably on the sofa, phone in his left hand, right arm resting on the sofa back. Ichigo-kun? Jinjo asked knowingly. There was silence on the other end for a moment. It's me. At a place resembling a bar. No dizzying lights, no men and women indulging in revelry, only dim yellow lighting. Behind the counter was a middle-aged man with an eye patch over his right eye, a beard, and dressed in black waiter attire. At a glance, Ichigo recognized this minor character who was split in two by Zaraki. Katsuzawa Juriko. This middle-aged man was one of the Scution's members. His ability's medium was a pocket watch. He could set timed mechanisms, causing objects to change upon exceeding the set time limit. He could also impose time range restrictions on any person or object. The simpler the time rules set by Jericho, the more powerful the obtained strength would be. If something subjected to a timed mechanism attempted to violate the set time rule, it would be burned to ashes by the flames of time. The downside was that once the ability was activated, even the user could not alter or remove the time rule they had set. Jericho's full-bring transformation would turn him into a humanoid giant 80 to 90% similar to the Hulk. His full-bring transformation corresponded to the power system of Shinigami, roughly equivalent to a Shinigami's Zanpakuto's Bankai. Ichigo smiled at him. Although he would ultimately die anyway, since this guy would soon become his training partner, he'd give him a smile to see. You must be the guest Jinjo-sama mentioned. Jinjo-sama is over there. Ichigo suppressed the excitement in his heart, not letting his exhilaration show on the surface. After all, he was just a laid-back person. Learning full bring was only to protect others. He absolutely shouldn't appear excited or thrilled. You're so insincere, Ichigo-kun. What took you so long? Jinjo, not far away, greeted Ichigo while holding a glass. Ah, haughty! A girl beside Jinjo exclaimed excitedly upon seeing Ichigo. Another Scution's member became excited and shouted upon seeing Ichigo. The girl had a pair of red eyes, purple-red hair styled into twin tails, wearing a white fur cap with two wide fur pieces attached, a black short dress, and black knee-high boots. Dokugamin Riruka. Ichigo silently recited her name. This girl's full-bring ability was also quite good. If his own full-bring could reach a level not inferior to hers, then his efforts wouldn't be in vain. Riruka's weapon was the love gun. Its appearance was a toy painted with small hearts and fish faces, with a yellow gradient cone attached to the front, white wings, and a transparent tube. It was a special pistol created by Tsukishima. The love gun could be used with the dollhouse ability, shooting things placed inside the gun to attack opponents. That sounds pretty average, but that's not her actual ability. The love gun was just a weapon Tsukishima crafted for her, and Riruka's full-bring medium was her collection of toys. These mediums were stored in her dollhouse, a toy castle like those children play with. Riruka could release a peach heart through a specific gesture of rubbing her index finger and thumb together, attaching it to things she considered cute or liked as a permission marker. Using this heart-shaped marker, Riruka could freely enlarge or shrink the attached object and place it inside her own dollhouse. The release phrase is, "I allow you to enter." Riruka's strength was also decent. Her full-bring transformation didn't change her appearance much. Riruka's full-bring transformation changes were mostly reflected in her clothes. After transforming, the white fur cap on her head would become a white hat with two rabbit ears attached. Her neck would gain a shirt collar and a short tie connected to the collar. The boat neck would become a V-neck. A heart-shaped armor engraved with lightning patterns would appear on her chest. Her hands would wear long sleeves with small hearts painted on them and short spikes attached. A thin belt would be worn around her waist. Over her original black boots, she would wear a pair of white boots. In this state, Riruka could manipulate large groups of dolls within her ability space to attack opponents. She could also use the heart-shaped mark on her gloves to perform Addiction Strike, transferring opponents into her toys. Addiction Strike was an evolved derivative of the strengthened dollhouse. It didn't require the finger-rubbing gesture. She could shoot a small heart from the heart-shaped mark on her transformed sleeve, attaching it to an opponent, and transferring them into her toy. Opponents trapped inside the toy would not only be unable to use their weapons but would also hurt themselves when their attacks exploded inside the toy. Additionally, Riruka could use this move to hide inside the opponent's body. After entering, she could hear the opponent's inner thoughts. The moment Riruka emerged from the opponent's body, an open H-shaped exit would appear on their chest, allowing Riruka to return to the real world. Overall, Riruka's full bring was quite good. Although Riruka's behavior was exaggerated, Ichigo still had quite a bit of goodwill towards her. In the original work, this girl's actions showed she was relatively kind-hearted, unlike the psychologically dark Jinjo. Chapter 275 Deliberately Getting Close to You. Moreover, Riruka was also the main assistant for his full-bring learning. His full-bring training basically couldn't proceed without her help. You must have a lot of questions coming here, right? Jinjo ignored the delirious Riruka, amiably patting Ichigo's shoulder. Hearing Jinjo's words, Ichigo gave Riruka a slight smile, then looked at Jinjo to see what he wanted to say. I know, Ichigo, you must have realized I was deliberately getting close to you. Unclear about Jinjo's exact intentions, Ichigo could only respond with silence. Jinjo looked at Ichigo sincerely, beginning to brainwash him. Our goal is to help you recover your Shinigami powers. Jinjo waved his hand, stopping Ichigo, who wasn't planning to speak anyway. I know even if I said this, you definitely won't believe it. Jinjo painfully grabbed the clothes over his chest. You must have sensed it too, everyone here is unusual. It turned out Jinjo was telling Ichigo the reason for getting close to him, which was the same spiel about absorbing their full-bring powers. Ichigo, do you know? Everything in the world has its own soul. Even a trash can by the roadside has its own soul. If a soul resonates with you and it's a tool you're familiar with, you can cause its form to change. Jinjo opened his mouth. The water inside the glass on the table was extracted, flowing into Jinjo's mouth. Gulp! The glass, now empty of wine, made a sound as the ice hit the bottom. I just extracted the soul of the wine, commanding it to enter my mouth on its own. Awesome. Ichigo gave Jinjo's performance a thumbs up. If he didn't know what the other party was saying was true, such words would make Ichigo think he was some kind of master. While Jinjo was explaining what full bring was to Ichigo, Ichigo's thoughts had already drifted to the game. He wanted to see what was most suitable for him to learn full bring with. Gain from my full bring learning, which item would be better to use as the ability medium? Insufficient points, cannot analyze. Request credit. This function is not activated. Screw it. Does that mean I have to use the substitute Shinigami badge as my full bring medium? Ichigo didn't want Ichigo's full bring ability. He wanted to see if he had something else he could use as a medium. But if not the substitute Shinigami badge, then what else could I use? My Zanpakuto was definitely out, it might backfire. Listening to Jinjo's explanation, Ichigo suddenly had a brainwave, glancing at his collar with the corner of his eye. It seemed there really was one. The Hogyoku. And he didn't even need to sense its soul, as he could communicate directly with it. They had been familiar for so long. Alright, Ichigo, I won't say more. You can start training now. Jinjo pointed at Riruka. Let me introduce Riruka. She is your teacher for today. Riruka looked at Ichigo with a smug expression, her hand resting on a square, white-walled, red-roofed little house the size of a cake box. This was her dollhouse. Hottie, it's starting. Riruka rubbed her thumb and index finger together. A red heart flew out from between her fingers and, in Ichigo's sight, landed on the clothes over his chest. Pink mist enveloped Ichigo. He felt himself shrink with a poof. Riruka watched with great interest, curiously observing the shrunken Ichigo. Riruka pointed her finger at her dollhouse. I allow you to come in. Pink light carried Ichigo into the dollhouse under Riruka's hand. Ichigo looked around. The dollhouse interior looked like a stage for plays, surrounded by many cardboard houses, plants, and animals. Hottie. Ichigo looked up. A giant head appeared above the house. The giant shook her twin tails. Your first training task is to defeat Mr. Pork. As Riruka spoke, a white with a hint of pink, standing pig doll wearing black striped clothes on its belly appeared before Ichigo. The doll was about 40 to 50 centimeters tall, but Ichigo, after shrinking, was only over 10 centimeters tall. Standing before Ichigo, he had to look up at it. Ichigo didn't know if such training was really useful, but if he couldn't learn, the other party should be more anxious than him. So Ichigo, for now, followed the other party's demand. Roar! The pig doll ferociously strode towards Ichigo. I forgot to tell you, Kurosaki Ichigo, this doll has a real person sealed inside. To turn back into a human, Mr. Pork will attack you very hard. So do your best, Kurosaki Ichigo. Raruka watched Ichigo with a mischievous smile. The doll had already begun attacking. Ichigo did a lazy donkey roll, dodging the cylindrical large foot stomp of the pig doll. With his power sealed, he really didn't have a good way to deal with this doll several times his height. Relying on his body alone, forget counterattacking, it would be good if he could avoid being caught by it. Thud! The cute doll revealed a fierce expression. To escape this doll form, the person hidden inside used the doll body to frantically attack Ichigo. The command Raruka gave this doll was, if it could defeat Ichigo within 15 minutes, it would gain freedom. Whoosh! Ichigo pressed his palm against the floor, dodging the doll's attack. Simultaneously, coordinating his entire body's muscles, wave pushing wave, his body like a precision instrument, carrying all his strength, a fist carrying Ichigo's arms sank completely into the doll's soft body. His counterattack was beautiful, but unfortunately, the other party's body didn't react at all to his attack. The doll's soft and fluffy body didn't suffer any damage. Seeing this, Ichigo directly gave up on defeating the doll. From the previous attack, he had already understood that with his current physical condition, he simply couldn't defeat this doll. Fine then, I can only compete with it in endurance. For a moment, Ichigo didn't know how to defeat this doll. He had already made the strongest counterattack he could, so if the other didn't take damage, what could he do? Ichigo calmed down. The other party was surely doing this to make him learn full bring, not for exercise. Otherwise, a treadmill would suffice, and it wouldn't need to be this complicated now. Chapter 276 How to Begin Learning Full Bring. Full bring is the ability to elevate the power of obsession to its extreme, but I have no clue right now. What am I obsessed with? The substitute Shinigami badge in his hand. He wasn't obsessed with it at all. While Ichigo was thinking about how to begin learning full bring, two rapidly closing pink walls suddenly appeared before him. It was the pig doll. Seeing Ichigo hopping around like a flea, it, having been teased, seized the opportunity for a leaping pounce. Using its huge size advantage, it appeared right above Ichigo's head. Although Ichigo timely escaped its falling range, the doll's outstretched arms closed like windshield wipers. Facing this large range attack, Ichigo not only didn't run backward but instead charged towards the fast-approaching arm. The moment the arm was about to hit Ichigo, his body slid down, performing an extreme slide tackle to dodge the pig doll's finishing move. Raruka's full bring is really interesting. Most people's abilities enhance themselves, but her full bring can weaken others. I recalled another Skushin's member also has a full bring ability somewhat similar to Raruka's, also capable of trapping opponents in their own space. Thinking about these random things, Ichigo sold his efforts dodging the doll's attacks. Ichigo hadn't found the entry method yet, but there were benefits. That was, fighting this pig doll also earned combat points. Raruka, were you all born knowing how to use full bring? While dodging, Ichigo shouted loudly. However, although he was shouting, the sound reaching Raruka's ears was even smaller than normal speaking volume. Huh? Yes. What is it, Ichigo-kun? Raruka's slender hands pressed against the wall. Her sparkling big eyes also came closer, watching the handsome guy suffering inside the dollhouse. Ichigo glanced up when he had a chance, feeling a strong sense of a giant looking down. Oh, okay, it's nothing. Earlier, Jinjo had already demonstrated how to manipulate an object's soul. While drinking, Jinjo had displayed the wine's soul as much as possible for Ichigo to feel. Moreover, Ichigo also knew that full bring actually originates from hollow power. Game, help me find the feeling, how to grasp full bring power. Being inside someone else's full bring, fighting a soul controlled by full bring at close range, all of this made Ichigo vaguely sense something. This seemed to be the other party's purpose. He guessed perhaps Veruca didn't want him to defeat this pig doll but wanted him to carefully feel the soul she bound with her full bring inside. The soul is the core of full bring. 1,000 points, feel for 1/10 of a second. Ichigo's eyes widened. Game, why don't you just rob me? 1/10 of a second, is that a normal unit of time? Game's special offer. Generally, the game only offers a 10-second feeling service for 10,000 points for ordinary players. T/N. It's written like this in RAW. Rather than special offer, it's more like a scam. Ichigo understood. This was the system providing a special service seeing he was poor now. Fine. Every time the points reach 1,000, automatically give me one go, no need to ask me. Okay. Fighting this doll, on average, Ichigo could earn about 10 points per second. No other way, this doll was too weak. If not for Ichigo's special current situation, he wouldn't get any points at all. But it's not bad either. Following this progress, Ichigo could have a go every 100 seconds. Every time he got the feeling, Ichigo's body would shudder. Watching from outside, Veruca found it very strange, curiously fluttering her big eyes. Does Kurosaki Ichigo's body have some illness? How strange. Awesome! Ichigo comfortably shouted. This feeling was like two flints colliding in pitch-black darkness, sparking a momentary light. At that moment, Ichigo felt as if he could truly sense the souls of all things in the world. Like a blind person suddenly regaining sight, he saw the middle-aged man's soul encased inside the large pig doll before him, and also saw the spirits of the surrounding scene props. However, this feeling came and went quickly, so fast Ichigo wondered if it was an illusion. Gradually, Ichigo no longer completely dodged the pig doll's attacks and began his own counterattacks. With each contact, he seemed to vaguely sense the soul inside. Generally, through simple touch, such a feeling wouldn't be possible. But firstly, Ichigo's own body contained full bring power, possessing the foundation to sense souls. Secondly, this pig doll wasn't originally that person's own body. If it were the opponent's original flesh body, Ichigo might not be able to feel it. But this shell that didn't match him made it easier for Ichigo to feel its soul. I understand. The first step is feeling, sensing the souls of all things in the world. This is the foundation of full bring. Ichigo didn't know if it was like this in the original work, but today's training content, he felt was exactly this. Time passed minute by minute. Suddenly, the pig doll chasing Ichigo stopped moving. Ichigo also stopped. It's over? I just need to hold on for a certain time to pass this level? Ichigo's mind flashed with his guess. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Ichigo discovered the combat points hadn't stopped increasing, instead, they were still slowly growing. On the pig doll staying in place, purple-black flames abruptly sprouted. Bumps bulged on the doll's smooth, cute body. Its eyes suddenly fiercely gleamed. Ichigo was startled. The pig doll roared in pain. At this moment, the flint in Ichigo's mind sparked just then. Ichigo saw the soul howling in pain inside the doll. This time, Ichigo's sensation lasted longer. Each time the flint collided in his mind, the next time his sensation lasted a bit longer. Now, Ichigo felt he even had a bit of that afterimage feeling. That is, each time after that brief instant passed, he could still, not so clearly, see and hear those souls and their voices. It's indeed effective. Ichigo was inwardly delighted, coming to Tsukushin was really right. Without Veruca's dollhouse, even with the game and points, I wouldn't find the right direction. Chapter 277. Is it Jericho's doing? However, this change should be Jericho's doing, right? He had been training for 15 minutes. The ability on the doll strongly resembled that of the cannon fodder middle-aged man, Jericho, whom Ichigo saw earlier at the front desk. If Ichigo guessed correctly, this should be the time limit Jericho set on this pig doll. After 15 minutes, if it hadn't defeated him yet, the middle-aged man's full bring ability would activate. Based on the other party's full bring ability, the pig doll's power would be greatly enhanced. Before it was just an ordinary, non-combative doll. Now, its combat power would probably skyrocket to the level of an adult. Sure enough, the game gave an evaluation of level 1. In his current state, Ichigo didn't even have a level 1. When the purple-black flames disappeared, the cute doll was gone. In its place was a three-eyed, purple-bodied doll whose head, originally charmingly naive, was now filled with malevolent ugly pig doll. Finally, the doll's height was also half taller than before. 15 minutes earlier, Ichigo could relatively easily handle this pig doll's attacks. Now, he wasn't that at ease anymore. Although even after transformation, the pig doll's material was still cottony and fluffy, when its limbs hit Ichigo's body, Ichigo felt as if he had hit a wall and was easily knocked to the edge of the map. In the doll's current state, each time the spark flashed in Ichigo's mind, he could see that painfully burning, malevolently filled soul. Feeling the soul's different states, Ichigo continued to hold on, not getting caught. After Jericho applied full bring to the doll, Ichigo's combat points also increased from the original 10 per second to 30 per second. Basically, he could experience the feeling of regaining sight twice per minute. This process was both blissful and painful because the Hogyoku wasn't working, and his body's own recovery effects were also sealed by the game. So every injury was real and solid for Ichigo. Hold on, it's almost there. Ichigo felt the impact on his soul's perception intensity growing stronger. The long dormant, already dusty talent in Ichigo's body was gradually being dusted off under his efforts. Finally, in yet another moment of perception, the brilliant light hadn't fully faded yet when slowly dying light once again shone in the darkness, even brighter than before. The bright vision forever remained in Ichigo's eyes. The souls of all things in the world like dust entered Ichigo's eyes. Succeeded. Ichigo couldn't suppress his excited mood, a smile appearing on his face. The excited Ichigo forgot he was still in training. That moment of emotion made him overlook the danger. A formless large hand grabbed Ichigo in its grasp. Roar! The pig doll was about to ferociously slam Ichigo onto the floor. Fortunately, Raruka stopped it in time. Ichigo patted himself and slid from the doll's arm. Then, under Raruka's ability, he walked out of the dollhouse and returned to normal. Ichigo-kun, don't be disheartened. It's normal not to have learned full bring today. Just as Ichigo was about to reply to Raruka, his peripheral glimpse caught sight of Jinjo's not-so-good expression not far away. What's wrong with this guy? Ichigo guessed Jinjo's thoughts. Shouldn't the other be very happy today? After all, his plan was on track, and I had already started learning full bring. Why would he still look like that, appearing with a very forced expression? Ichigo was puzzled. That's right. Jinjo's expression at this moment was indeed very forced. Because according to Jinjo's original prediction, with Ichigo's extraordinary talent, even if full bring power had lain dormant in his body for over a decade, he should have been able to learn it immediately upon contacting full bring and receiving instruction from Skushin's members. Yet after the first day of learning, Ichigo showed no results at all. Could it truly be because after lying dormant for too long, his talent had degenerated? Jinjo's mood was unprecedentedly bad at this moment. Because that would mean Ichigo's full bring talent was very ordinary, with little value. His plan was completely wasted for nothing. All that time completely gone down the drain. Even if they went through immense hardships and finally nurtured Ichigo's full bring ability, what use would it be then? It wouldn't even be worth absorbing. Why did he seek out Ichigo and not others? Precisely because Ichigo's talent was exceptionally high, his value high. Otherwise, although full bring users were few in this world, they weren't non-existent. Couldn't he have directly approached those people? Ichigo, how do you feel about today's learning? Jinjo put on a concerned expression and came before Ichigo. In such a brief time, observing Jinjo's expression changes, Ichigo had already vaguely guessed about 80 to 90% of the other party's thoughts. Ichigo inwardly laughed. In the original work, Kurosaki Ichigo indeed learned full bring in the first training session. After all, he was someone who could activate fighting spirit and talent through things like honor and bonds. Meanwhile, the current Ichigo wasn't that strong. However, Ichigo was confident his full bring definitely wouldn't be inferior to Kurosaki Ichigo's. Because full bring is closely related to the ability medium. For example, among Tsushin's members, Jericho's ability medium is a pocket watch, so his full bring is related to time. There was also another member absent today, Tsukishima Shikuro. Tsukishima's ability medium is a bookmark. Part of his full bring ability also reflects its relationship with the medium. Tsukishima can enter others' past memories, while a bookmark precisely separates read and unread content, serving as a marker. There is still a certain connection between the two. These all prove the ability medium's influence on a full bring user's power. Often, a full bring user's ability doesn't depend on the person but on the object, on their ability medium. It actually has little to do with the person. And the item Ichigo decided to use as his ability medium was precisely the Hogyoku. Chapter 278 can begin activating full bring. As for choosing the Hogyoku, Ichigo had 3 reasons. First, although the Hogyoku hadn't been with him for a long time, it wasn't short either. Moreover, Ichigo had quite a bit of communication with the Hogyoku. The Hogyoku itself had even integrated into Ichigo's chest, with high intimacy. Second, the Hogyoku's own quality is extremely high. It's no exaggeration to call it the strongest black technology in the Bleach world. An existence capable of directly resurrecting its master's life. Calling it a divine artifact is no exaggeration at all. With the Hogyoku as the ability medium, Ichigo was confident his full bring ability's strength wouldn't be low. Finally, the Hogyoku is closely related to battle. When its master faces a life and death crisis, it can push the master limitlessly towards greater heights. Ichigo felt this characteristic of the Hogyoku might influence his full bring ability. Choosing the Hogyoku, Ichigo could, to the greatest extent, avoid messing up and awakening some trash full bring ability. Haha, very good, very good. I can already see the soles of the furniture in this room. Jinjo, your teaching is indeed very useful. At this moment, Ichigo naturally wouldn't tease Jinjo. If the other party thought his value was insufficient, changed plans, and ultimately affected his full bring learning, that would be lifting a rock only to drop it on his own feet. He wouldn't let such a thing happen. Is that so? Ichigo, as long as you find it useful. Next week's training will be at this same time. A balance between work and rest. Upon hearing Ichigo's words, Jinjo's face immediately cleared up, like clouds parting to reveal the sun. Come to think of it, although Kurosaki Ichigo's talent was extraordinary, after more than 10 years of not being activated, this was actually normal. I had been too impatient. Jinjo had already found an excuse for Ichigo himself. He was simply too worried about Ichigo's full bring not being strong enough. In this world, besides Ichigo himself, Jinjo was the one who cared most about Ichigo's full bring. No need. I feel my condition is very good. We should strike while the iron is hot, let's continue tomorrow. Ichigo rejected Jinjo's suggestion. Balance between work and rest, my foot. I'm pressed for time, you know. Haha, Ichigo, you really are. Fine, fine. Jinjo said a few words pretendingly, then let Ichigo leave. Ichigo rolled his eyes at Jinjo, and inwardly complained, I know you well enough, you'd want me to practice full bring 24 hours a day without eating or drinking. Leaving the Tsushin base, Ichigo curiously looked around. Everything in the world truly has a soul. The souls of all things are exactly the same as their physical forms. And Ichigo could manipulate their souls to change the forms of these things. Different things have different souls. Living objects have more complex soul compositions with more intricate colors. Like the utility pole he just passed, although it also had a soul, its soul was very dull. Manipulating and commanding them was also very simple. Now, Ichigo clearly understood Jinjo's statement. I commanded them to enter my mouth on their own. At the time, although Ichigo knew about full bring, he still thought it was quite nonsensical. Isn't that just making them commit suicide? Now Ichigo knew it was because their souls basically had little to no intelligence. Basically, as long as you could sense them, you could simply command them. Next, it's about communicating with the Hogyoku. Ichigo could have completed the communication process with the Hogyoku at Jinjo's place. However, Ichigo worried Jinjo might have other ideas upon seeing the Hogyoku, leading to unforeseen complications. So he didn't communicate with the Hogyoku there. Ichigo returned home and communicated with the Hogyoku, hoping it could become his full-bring medium. "All right," a crisp, genderless voice replied. The communication process was simple. The Hogyoku's intelligence wasn't low. After clarifying what this ability medium entailed, it agreed without much reluctance. After this step, Ichigo's full bring was almost 70 to 80% complete. "Good, Hogyoku. With your word, from now on, if I have a bite to eat, you'll have a sip to drink." With the Hogyoku's promise, Ichigo set his mind at ease. Tomorrow, he should be able to begin activating full bring. Because when full bring is first acquired, it erupts with immense power. Someone must suppress this power, otherwise it will cause massive destruction. Ichigo didn't act rashly on his own. The next day, Jinjo was already waiting early at the Tsukushin's base. Seeing Ichigo arrive on time, Jinjo beamed with joy. Ichigo didn't exchange many pleasantries, urging Jinjo to quickly arrange his training for the day. "All right, your teacher today is still Raruka." Following Jinjo's index finger, Ichigo saw Raruka nearby, elbows leaning on a birdcage. Just as Ichigo was learning full bring, his enemies were also executing their plans. Oriheim came to consult with Chad today. Previously, Oriheim would always go to Ichigo. The reason she didn't now actually had a cause. The false information about Ichigo released by the Soul Society, meant to deceive the enemy, first deceived Oriheim and the others. Thus, in Oriheim's cognition, Ichigo was now an ordinary person. So Oriheim didn't discuss any potentially dangerous matters with Ichigo now, worried about involving him in danger. Just as Oriheim was about to knock, a youth with a punk hairstyle, with a strip of hair from the forehead to the nape down the middle of his head, followed Oriheim here. The youth wore a high school uniform with a red top revealing a demon pattern, Buddhist prayer beads hanging from his waist. The youth's name was Shishigawara. He was a follower under Tsukishima, also a full bring user, but not an Tsukushin's member. Shishigawara's ability medium was brass knuckles engraved with the lucky number 777, a full bring that could manipulate probability. When Shishigawara directly attacks someone with his right hand wearing the brass knuckles, or uses an object touched by his right hand wearing the brass knuckles to attack a target, due to his ability's influence, it will hit the opponent and cause damage. If directly striking the opponent's head, it can even achieve instant kill effect. However, if this full bring is used consecutively, Shishigawara's luck will gradually worsen instead. "Do you need something?" Seeing someone behind her, Oriheim turned around curiously, giving a lovely smile. Shishigawara was a full bring user, but simultaneously he was also a severe simp. Looking at the turned around, stunningly beautiful Oriheim, Shishigawara nearly defected on the spot. "Sorry, Tsukishima-san, right now I really cannot obey." It's hard to imagine Tsukishima's follower could be so unreliable. Shishigawara received orders from Tsukishima to track and attack Oriheim. Shishigawara highly respected Tsukishima, but now. Chapter 279 Fullbring's power shares the same origin as Hollow Power. But now, Shishigawara was like a helpless, love-struck youth, completely unsure what to say or do. May I ask if you have some business?" Seeing Shishigawara silent, Oriheim couldn't help but press further. Her this cluelessly cute appearance made the thoroughly punkish Shishigawara scratch his head, ing and ing for a long while without knowing how to respond. "Shishigawara, you disappoint me." An effeminate man, holding a book, walked out from the shadows. Tsukishima had actually been following Shishigawara all along. Shishigawara immediately became nervous, waving his hands repeatedly. "No, it's not like that, Tsukishima-san." Tsukishima paid no heed to Shishigawara's excuses, emerging from the shadows step by step. Oriheim looked left and right at the two. One resembled a young genius professor from a university, the other a delinquent youth who dropped out in junior high. How could these two completely different people get together? Oriheim's little head was filled with confusion. Shishigawara, you know my way of doing things, right? Tsukishima opened the book in his hand, plucking a bookmark from within. Swish. White, ghastly light reflected on Oriheim's face. The page, right before her, turned into a blade adorned with chains. Shishigawara closed his mouth. An intangible sense of danger made his skin involuntarily tighten. He knew Tsukishima had harbored killing intent towards him. This man he deeply respected was extremely utilitarian. Anyone who violated his orders would certainly not have a good outcome. You are not allowed to harm others. Oriheim spread her arms, like a mother hen protecting the youth behind her. Although she didn't know Shishigawara at all, Oriheim couldn't watch someone innocently harmed right in front of her. She still didn't know Shishigawara was there to track her and kill her. Shishigawara was somewhat dumbfounded, not expecting Oriheim to do this. But in an instant, Shishigawara's eyes widened. Tsukishima didn't waste words. He slashed along Oriheim's shoulder down, stopping at chest level before he withdrew the blade and turned. Oriheim collapsed heavily. Tsukishima used his insert existence ability on Oriheim, which means Oriheim fell into the memories he constructed. Shishigawara, you only have this one chance. A calm voice lingered in Shishigawara's ear. Shishigawara looked at the departing Tsukishima, then at Oriheim, whose eyes had lost their sparkle. Shishigawara hesitated for a moment but still left. After Shishigawara left, electric arcs shot from Oriheim's lifeless eyes. After a few seconds, Oriheim recovered and stood up. Then Oriheim knocked on as usual Chad's door. Hearing no one, she left. At the Skushin's base. Ichigo's training location today was a birdcage. Today's training opponents included the pig doll from last time and a bird doll called Chicken Skin. Like yesterday, Ichigo consolidated his sensing ability while simultaneously accumulating combat points. Now, being dirt poor, he truly understood the importance of combat points. Good luck, Ichigo. Raruka outside the birdcage didn't mind adding fuel to the fire. Jinjo also stood outside the birdcage, giving Ichigo pointers. Rather than pointers, it was more like worry. Ichigo believed if he still couldn't activate this full-bring ability today, Jinjo would probably start getting a bit anxious. Game, can I use all my points to enhance my full-bring power? Ichigo made another request to the game. Just as Ichigo thought the game didn't offer this service, his meager points suddenly vanished. The power originating from hollows, yet with a slight difference, within him grew. This was full-bring power. It shared the same origin as hollow power but had subtle differences. After all, it underwent adaptation and transformation through a human host body. It couldn't be exactly the same as hollow power. Comparing full-bring power and hollow power using drinks would be roughly the difference between Coke and Pepsi. Very close, differing only in subtle aspects. Good. This way, integration will also be convenient. When Ichigo concretely felt the continuously growing full-bring power within him and found it very close to the power driving his hollowification, Ichigo immediately felt quite satisfied. Because he didn't want his power too scattered. He hoped the power within him wouldn't be too disorderly, becoming a tangled mess. In Ichigo's conception, there are 4 major power systems in the Bleach world: Shinigami, Hollow, Fullbring, Quincy. Ideally, these 4 systems' powers could fuse into one within him. If there really was one that couldn't fuse, he would rather give them up. Having power too heterogeneous within him was not a good thing for him. Now, the hollow power and Shinigami power within him had begun methodically beginning to fuse. They were no longer 2 parallel one-way streets but one broad, sunny avenue. Hollow power was relatively biased towards the physical body, bringing Ichigo improvements mainly in this aspect. Shinigami power was relatively biased towards energy, also more complex, ever-changing. It could be used to perform Kido, support Zanpakuto's Bankai. Full-bring power focused on the soul, mechanism complex. But in terms of pure destructive power, it wasn't very outstanding compared to the previous two. Just look at Jericho, who mastered time-related full-bring. His ability seemed full of style, yet in the end, wasn't he still one-shot by Zaraki? From beginning to end, Zaraki only regarded Jericho as a minor character. So Ichigo believed no matter how flashy the mechanism, it's useless. It still comes down to numerical limits. But if he could learn full bring and also perfectly integrate these powers into one, then he would have both numerical values and mechanisms, becoming a perfect all-round warrior. Up to this point, Ichigo's current conception was already quite complete. As for Quincy, he hadn't truly experienced its full scope yet. Ichigo decided after encountering the Thousand-Year Blood War arc, he would carefully examine Quincy abilities to see if they could integrate into his existing power system. If not, Ichigo wouldn't force them in. Ichigo. Jinjo's face appeared outside the birdcage. The key to full bring is establishing a soul connection with an object, using your full bring power to nurture the item. I believe you can definitely do it. Jinjo told Ichigo the key to awakening full bring. He originally wanted Ichigo to feel it himself, but now, he decided to give a little hint. With Jinjo's hint, Ichigo knew merely increasing full bring power wouldn't awaken full bring either. Chapter 280 The Soul Barrier with the Hogyoku? Just like a gymnast merely increasing strength cannot spontaneously learn those difficult techniques and moves. A body possessing great strength is only the foundation supporting the athlete in learning those moves. To learn full bring, one must continuously use full bring power to shine upon an item. The full bring power within Ichigo continuously grew and flowed towards the Hogyoku, establishing a soul connection with Ichigo. This process occurred in segments because, like before, the game only helped him enhance his full bring ability after he accumulated a certain amount of points. Without a weapon in hand, having to simultaneously dodge attacks from Chicken Skin and the pig doll was much more difficult than before. He was in a sorry state from the start. Although Ichigo could now also command to a certain degree surrounding objects, this birdcage was under Raruka's control and he couldn't control it. But Ichigo quickly found an opportunity, grabbing Chicken Skin's body and being taken into the air. On Chicken Skin's back, he could not only avoid the doll's attacks below, but Chicken Skin itself couldn't hit him either. Ichigo finally took a secret glance at his chest. He was now like Ultraman, with his chest flashing. This was the commotion the Hogyoku was making, indicating the Hogyoku was beginning to establish a soul connection with Ichigo under the full bring power. When the Hogyoku completely lit up, the soul connection between him and the Hogyoku would be established. Screech! Chicken Skin flew low, circling around the pig doll. The pig doll seized the opportunity and threw a punch. Damn! Before the word was fully out, Ichigo was pressed into Chicken Skin's body, hitting the birdcage together with Chicken Skin. Ichigo, keep it up, are you okay? A large eye appeared outside the iron bars, becoming Ichigo's backdrop. Jinjo looked suspiciously at Ichigo. How come after so long, Kurosaki Ichigo still hadn't shown any signs? I had even pointed out the key point. Could it be that Kurosaki Ichigo's talent wasn't as powerful as I thought? The already dissipated doubts coalesced once more. If that were truly the case, even though he was the one who actively approached Ichigo, he would definitely make this person who wasted his efforts turn to ashes under his wrath. Although Ichigo's power was sealed, his instincts remained. Stimulated by Jinjo's killing intent, Ichigo turned his head sharply. Just a minor matter. This is nothing but a small problem. Ichigo knew the other party was becoming suspicious again, as his progress wasn't as fast as the other imagined. Such conditions were indeed very demanding, requiring Ichigo's talent to be very high. But if it weren't so, Jinjo wouldn't have sought out Ichigo. He was a wolf wanting fat meat, not just to fill his belly. Jinjo encouraged a few words, but the dark clouds in his heart still hadn't dispersed. He walked to the side, watching the thumb-sized Ichigo in the birdcage from afar, his gaze gradually turning cold. Ichigo didn't pay attention to Jinjo. Training full bring within Raruka's territory had an accelerating effect. Although he could break relations now and go back to train on his own, it was best not to break relations if possible. After a few hours, Ichigo walked out of the birdcage drenched in sweat, returning to his original size with Raruka's help. It seemed I couldn't awaken full bring today. There was no other way. Ichigo's current combat power was low, and the combat points he obtained were pitifully few. But things like full bring transformation later, Jinjo hadn't taught him yet. So he didn't adopt the method of removing the seal to harvest points in large quantities. Because of that, it could only be dripping water wears through stone, perseverance. Days passed one by one. Ichigo's progress steadily improved. The soul barrier between him and the Hogyoku also grew thinner day by day. But the distance to truly awakening full bring still had a period of time. During this time, Jinjo's suspicion grew heavier, and his patience gradually ran out. At the Skyushin's base, inside Raruka's birdcage, several weak lives were fighting each other. Vroom vroom vroom. Ichigo voiced sound effects in his heart. The Hogyoku on his chest, after these days of effort, had its flashing frequency speed up somewhat. At the beginning, his chest was like an almost out-of-battery charger, flashing very slowly. Probably in a few more days, he could completely break the soul barrier with the Hogyoku and successfully awaken his own full bring. Ichigo, let's stop here for today? Jinjo suddenly called out to Ichigo. What's wrong? I feel I can still continue. Today, Ichigo had been training for less than half an hour. But since Jinjo had spoken, Skyushin's members naturally obeyed, stopping one after another. Raruka pointed her finger, and the two still-moving dolls abruptly stopped moving. Ichigo's combat points also stopped increasing and fell back to 0. Ichigo, I think we should investigate a bit. It's been 2 weeks already. I think we should investigate from your background. Perhaps the hollow that attacked your mother back then wasn't actually strong, so the ability passed to you is also very weak. In that case, you would find it hard to awaken full bring, Jinjo said a long speech. His tone and expression no longer had the previous generous and cheerful air. It seemed Jinjo's patience had reached its limit. If Ichigo couldn't give an explanation today, Jinjo might tear off the mask. Ichigo pretended to be puzzled. That can't be. I have experienced hollowification before. In that state, I completely couldn't control myself. Logically, my ability should be very strong. Seeing the puzzlement on Ichigo's face, Jinjo also felt puzzled inside. He also felt Ichigo's full bring should be very powerful. But the situation was exactly the opposite. He still didn't understand this matter, but he didn't have much patience left. Seeing Jinjo's expression was still bad, Ichigo deliberately said, Actually, I've long felt my full bring should have awakened, but it's just missing something. Jinjo's expression shattered like hard ice. Missing something? Actually, nothing was missing except combat points. But Ichigo naturally wouldn't say that. I don't know either, but I feel it will be in the next few days. Jinjo remained silent for a moment, his expression recovering its cheerfulness. Then Ichigo, you shouldn't overwork yourself. I think it's very likely because you've been training too hard, Ichigo. Thus, several more days passed amidst Jinjo's suspicions. Ichigo finally charged himself full of battery power. Chapter 281 Inseparable from the Hogyoku? The Hogyoku on his chest no longer flashed, instead emitting a gentle light constantly. Jinjo, please take a look. I feel I seem to have some sensation. Help me see. I feel as if I'm about to awaken full bring. Ah? You've already found your ability medium? Is it your substitute Shinigami badge? No, it's something else. Ichigo didn't plan to tell Jinjo about his ability medium. He didn't know if Jinjo knew about his possession of the Hogyoku. After all, Jinjo was ultimately an enemy, so it's better to conceal what could be concealed. Alright, but are you already certain? Ichigo nodded. His mood was also somewhat tense. Right now, he felt like he was drawing a lottery. Good luck meant winning 5 million, while bad luck meant all the investment over this long time would be completely wasted. When a Fullbring user activates Fullbring, they emit a kind of light called Bringer Light. Jinjo emitted Bringer Light, enveloping Ichigo. Ichigo closed his eyes, guiding himself to fuse with the Hogyoku. Suddenly, a feeling of coolness entered his body. Like a drop of water dissolving into a bowl of water. After adding this drop, the entire bowl seemed to undergo a chemical reaction, boiling up. However, under the envelopment of Jinjo's Bringer Light, the boiling commotion was controlled within a certain range, trying to make the changes on Ichigo's body transition smoothly. This change based on the soul began to affect Ichigo's physical body in reality. Numerous blue lines outlined on his body, even around his eyes and on his face. The Hogyoku detached from Ichigo's chest, turning into an inwardly rotating blue vortex, surrounded by misty vapor, suspended in Ichigo's palm, like a blue sun. Simultaneously, countless bits of information flowed through Ichigo's mind. Digesting this information, Ichigo also understood his own Fullbring ability. First, his ability was like other Fullbring users, concentrated on the ability medium. However, unlike others, his ability medium was very closely connected to him personally, like an organ of his body. And at this time, like Aizen, he could recall the Hogyoku in his hand back into his body at any time. The ability was mainly divided into two aspects, direct combat and growth. During combat, he could control the Hogyoku to generate attractive force. All energy attacks would be absorbed and stored by the Hogyoku. Afterwards, Ichigo could control the Hogyoku to rotate outward, and then the Hogyoku would release these energy attacks. As for growth, Ichigo could usually use these energies to temper his body. While the mechanism wasn't very complex, it's quite practical. How about it, Ichigo? What's your ability like? As soon as Ichigo opened his eyes, a pair of hopeful big eyeballs were blinking non-stop. I seem to have obtained an absorption ability, belonging to the growth-type Fullbring. Ichigo casually brushed off Jinjo. Absorption? Ichigo, you truly have extraordinary talent. Just looking at your appearance tells how powerful your Fullbring is. You will definitely be able to recover your Shinigami power in the future, helping us absorb the abilities on our bodies. Upon hearing this, Jinjo so happily chugged several large mouthfuls of wine. Ichigo looked at the completely transformed Hogyoku held aloft in his palm, extremely relieved. Good thing I didn't choose the substitute Shinigami badge. The ability medium indeed has a great relationship with the Fullbring user's ability. Ichigo could now finally say this sentence with certainty. At least the Fullbring he awakened was absolutely inseparable from the Hogyoku. Ichigo, let's strike while the iron is hot. Now that you've awakened Fullbring, it's the perfect opportunity for training. I'll have another Skushin's member help you train. Jinjo decided to have Ichigo fight alongside Jackie to familiarize himself with his Fullbring through training. Why do you need me when you guys can help him? A displeased voice came. Ichigo hadn't seen the person yet, but from the sound, the other party wasn't very willing to help him learn Fullbring. A boot stepped on a metal railing. Ichigo looked towards the second floor at the sound. A wild figure appeared on the second floor. Jackie was a short-haired woman with brown skin, full lips, dressed in a black long-sleeved top and white pants. The woman's face showed no clear expression, but from the looks, she was undoubtedly Jackie. Ichigo wasn't very familiar with the character Jackie, only roughly recalling her ability. Jackie's ability medium was boots. After activating her ability, she would gain a hat, a fur scarf, disc-shaped shoulder pads, connected sleeves, black gloves, and black strappy long leather boots. The right side of her face would be covered by a semi-transparent silk scarf attached to the hat brim. Jackie's ability was quite nonsensical. The more substance, like mud, sand, dust, blood, etc., sticking to Jackie's soul funeral boots, the kicking power would also become stronger. After Fullbring transformation, the semi-transparent silk scarf on the hat brim and the fur scarf around the neck would disappear. The upper body would wear a cropped fur long-sleeve top. The right shoulder would be equipped with a special device resembling a motorcycle engine. And over the original strappy boots, she would wear knee-high gradient-thick boots with backward-extending paired decorations. In her transformed state, Jackie could, using the device on her right shoulder, spray large amounts of rapidly solidifying black liquid onto her entire set of full-bring armor to strengthen the attack power of her soul funeral boots. With the black liquid solidified and covering her entire body, Jackie's kicking power could easily destroy towering rocks. It even added the ability for the user to initiate self-destruction. As the cost for using the self-destruction ability, Jackie would lose her full-bring power afterwards. It's completely trash. At least in the Bleach world. Ichigo felt her ability was quite useless. Not only were the numerical values not high, but there were also no special mechanisms. Full-bring originally didn't have very high numerical values. With such a lacking mechanism, Ichigo concluded her ability didn't have any particularly outstanding aspects. Jackie, this is a mutually beneficial matter. This sinful ability, don't you wish to remove it from your body? Jackie, think about your bro. Enough! Large plumes of white smoke suddenly swirled around Jackie. Jackie's expression was gloomy and angry, pained and crazy. You, get over here! Jackie's index finger pointed at Ichigo, carrying dense killing intent. However, Ichigo wasn't a very understanding person. What does this have to do with me? If you don't want to, then don't. Why vent your anger on me? Did I get in your way? Chapter 282 Shinigami's Ability. Shuinpa. Although in the Tsukushin's members' cognition, Ichigo was an ordinary human, in his own perception, he wasn't. Moreover, both sides had their own ulterior motives and neither owed the other. Therefore, he had not an ounce of gratitude or awe towards these teachers. Get me another teacher. Since this lady is unwilling, I won't insist. Ichigo, training is important. Jackie's state isn't because of you, it's related to me using her brother to provoke her. Jinjo outwardly gently persuaded, in reality, he was very disdainful of Ichigo's haughty appearance. A thing about to be harvested, what right does it have to pick and choose, and not be able to endure even a bit of frustration? Ichigo, calm down. Since you really don't want to, then let Jericho train with you. His strength isn't weak either. Fine. Ichigo had seen the micro-expression that flashed across Jinjo's face. Although the other party hid it well, Ichigo still saw it. Probably after he learned full-bring transformation, Jinjo and Tsukishima would make their move. At that time, Tsukishima would stab all the current Tsukushin's members once to restore their memories of being mutually hostile to normal. Then all Tsukushin's members would become hostile towards Ichigo. But at that time, who this matter would be unfavorable for was unknown. Anyway, if they behaved properly, Ichigo, considering they helped him learn full-bring, wouldn't bother with them. After all, in a while, he would leave this world. Then the ups and downs of this matter would have little to do with Ichigo. Ichigo, shall we begin now? Jericho came before Ichigo. He had already taken off his outermost coat, revealing a black vest underneath. With the vest off, Jericho's athletic physique roughly appeared in outline. All right, Jericho-san, come at me as you please. Jericho was a minor character in Zaraki's eyes. But for Ichigo, who had just awakened full-bring and still had an ordinary human constitution for now, this opponent was still somewhat intimidating. At least far more powerful countless times than things like pig dolls and chicken skin. Then I'll let Ichigo-san roughly experience what power is. Jericho's tone was full of arrogance, looking down from above. Jericho was like this. Usually, he was gentle and respectful, but once it involved power, Jericho would become extremely arrogant. Jinjo secretly observed Ichigo's expression. Well? You couldn't endure Jackie's temper. Now that you were once powerful, you definitely must be even more unable to endure such tone from Jericho, right? Jinjo put himself in Ichigo's place, and felt this was unimaginable torture. But at this moment, Ichigo was magnanimous again, showing no reaction. Jericho crooked a finger at Ichigo, signaling him to come. Ichigo didn't stand on ceremony either. It's a free training partner, so he might as well fight. Ichigo looked at the railing on the second floor. The iron railing distorted bit by bit under Ichigo's gaze, twisting into a rapier. Ichigo's hand grasped the blade outside the guard, his palms sliding along the blade to the tip's position. The sword immediately became smooth, burrs and flaws disappearing. Every second, strength and speed increased by 1,000th. Jericho looked arrogantly at Ichigo, saying, "If there were no upper limit, it indeed would be a good ability." Ichigo held the rapier, hand following the sword, elbow following the hand, shoulder following the elbow, body following the shoulder. Ichigo then charged at Jericho. "Momentum isn't bad." Jericho's words abruptly stopped. Ichigo, who should have been on the forward path, suddenly vanished, appearing before him in a flash. Only Jinjo saw what happened, Shunpa. It's a Shinigami's ability. But hadn't Ichigo lost his Shinigami power? Having just begun awakening full bring, he already recovered Shinigami power? Jinjo's gaze fixed on Ichigo instantly grew even more fervent, because this proved the other party's talent was almost the same as he thought. "Ichigo, very good. I didn't expect your full bring growth could be this fast. Following this progress, recovering Shinigami power is within sight. At that time, you will definitely be able to help us absorb that detestable ability." Jinjo happily patted Ichigo. It was evident he was very happy. "I also didn't expect my full bring growth could be this fast. But do you really not want your full bring? I feel it has absolutely nothing to do with you all." At this moment, Ichigo sincerely looked at Jinjo. "You could completely use this ability too." Before finishing, Jinjo interrupted Ichigo. A trace of a bitter smile was so evident on Jinjo's face. "Ichigo, you don't understand us. We have been tormented by this ability for too long. After suffering such great difficulty, now that we have a chance to get rid of it, please don't persuade us anymore." The tall Jinjo lay back in a chair. A wisp of smoke from his fingertips accompanied by a long, drawn-out sigh, indicating the owner's melancholic and complex state of mind. Keep acting?" Seeing this, Ichigo felt his expression was about to break. This was purely teasing Jinjo. The following time would basically be him consolidating full bring, progressing towards mastering full bring transformation. His goal was basically achieved. Now, he just wanted to see how Jinjo would perform. As expected, Jinjo's acting skills were still online. It just felt particularly laughable in Ichigo's eyes. "Ichigo, you don't know our experiences, so you cannot understand us." Jinjo didn't look at Ichigo, gaze drifting far. "Take Jackie. Do you know why she so hates full bring, so rejects training your full bring?" "I don't know. Who knows what that woman is thinking? Probably disliking her own mechanism being too trashy?" Jinjo's tone exuded deep sorrow. "That's because of Jackie's brother." "So?" Jinjo's large, pincer-like, mountain-like hand-like pincers, like a mountain landed on Ichigo, patting Ichigo so hard his body shook. A pair of big eyes carrying heavy expectation. "Ichigo, you are our only hope. Only you can lead us out of sea of suffering, bid farewell to this now pitch-black life." Looking into those eyes, Ichigo actually felt momentarily drawn in by the other. "I understand. I definitely won't betray your expectations." Chapter 283 Rukia's Shock. His resolute tone coupled with fervent, excited eyes, Ichigo's response won Jinjo's tired yet gratified gaze. "Keep it up, Ichigo. You are our only hope." Ichigo left the Skyushin's base without looking back. "Rukia, hit me!" "Huh!" Rukia was holding a pen about to write when Ichigo stopped her. "It's fine. I can see you now." Shinigami are also pure spiritual bodies, so Ichigo could of course see Rukia. "Ichigo, you can see me?" Rukia placed her hands on her hips, leaning her upper body forward, then tilting her head to look at Ichigo. "Of course." Ichigo, finding Rukia cute, was about to reach out to boop her nose when Rukia suddenly dodged. "I don't believe you." Rukia swiftly wrote words, then quickly left her original position, standing to Ichigo's side and slightly behind. Rukia said this, but her tone carried a hint of uncertainty. She didn't sense Ichigo's Ryatsu, but his aura was somewhat strange, different from an ordinary person. Seeing Rukia not very convinced, Ichigo didn't rush either, pretending he was the same as before, still couldn't see. Why don't you believe me? I never lie, you know. Ichigo watched from the corner of his eye Rukia's direction, reaching out to mimic hugging the air before him. Seeing Ichigo's action, Rukia immediately got angry. She was so worried about him, took great risks to come and tip him off, and he was still lying to her. Bakudo number 4, Hanawa. Displeased, Rukia decided to give Ichigo a small lesson. However, because she felt bad, Rukia only used a very low-level Kido. That's for lying to me. But Rukia felt somewhat strange. After all, if Ichigo really couldn't see, he shouldn't be able to hear her voice either. The Kido condensed into a rope and flew towards Ichigo. Rukia regretted the moment she used the Kido. Could he withstand it? Although it was only a low-level Kido, he was just an ordinary person now. Bakudo number 39, Enkozen! Rukia's emotional changes were subtle, but her actions weren't slow. 1 second after Ichigo pretended to hug air, 2 Bakudo were fired in succession, one after the other with almost no interval. Enkozen started later but overtook Hanawa and quickly formed, blocking in front of Ichigo. But just as Enkozen was about to unfold, a pulling force came. The formed Enkozen and Hanawa suddenly distorted, as if objects viewed in a funny house mirror. A blue sphere surrounded by misty, flame-like blue gas, hovered above Ichigo's palm. The two stretched, distorted Kido became only finger-sized when approaching the blue sphere in Ichigo's palm. The moment the blue sphere appeared, Rukia detected something unusual. When the Kido distorted and changed, Rukia's eyes widened. Following the trajectory of the Kido being sucked away, Rukia shifted her gaze to Ichigo, saw the Hogyoka held in Ichigo's hand. What is this thing? Is it because of this that you can see me even without Shinigami power? Rukia looked at Ichigo in shock. By now, how could she not know Ichigo really could see her, and was just teasing her earlier? More or less. Rukia's statement couldn't be considered completely correct, but this understanding was fine too. Full bring is a very niche ability. Although Rukia knew such a thing existed, she had never encountered it before. What is this thing useful for? Rukia poked at the Hogyoku in Ichigo's palm from a distance of 7 or 8 meters. Besides what you just saw, it can also be used to train my body and soul. Of course, these were only temporary abilities. With subsequent development, there might be other abilities. Truly amazing. What ability is this? Rukia didn't doubt Ichigo's words, directly giving 100% trust. Full bring. I mentioned it to you briefly before. Ichigo casually tossed the Hogyoku. It was thrown into the air, reaching the highest point didn't undergo free fall. Instead, it flew against common sense to a spot above and to the side of Ichigo. Ichigo didn't have the Hogyoku return to his body because it could absorb free-floating energy in the surrounding space. What kind of monster are you? Tell me, what can't you do? Rukia approached, carefully observing the blue sphere quietly hovering in the air. She truly didn't understand how this thing absorbed something like Kido. Haha, there's nothing I can't do. As long as it's an ability from the Bleach world, I can do it. Since you have some self-protection ability, I can feel a bit more at ease. At ease? At ease about what? Hearing this, Ichigo sensed Rukia's visit today still had a reason. So he curiously asked Rukia what happened. It's all your fault for not returning Inaba all along. Now the Central 46 have issued a tally against you. Captain Commander Yamamoto cannot resist the orders from the Central 46 either. Now the Central 46 have ordered a secret squad to come arrest you. Your Shinigami power has already disappeared. How is this full bring ability of yours? Can it protect you? Maybe you should just return Inaba? Rukia suggested. Actually, returning Inaba now was already irrelevant, But Ichigo just was displeased with the Central 46. It's fine, it's fine. My ability is very strong, and I also have companions. Not to mention going all out, whether that so-called secret squad could even defeat him was questionable. Ichigo didn't believe Jinjo would allow someone to arrest him at this critical time. Let them dogs bite dogs. Ichigo was determined. Is it really no problem? These niche abilities, lacking development from numerous practitioners, usually have many flaws. Ichigo naturally only mentioned the good points. Actually, Ichigo always felt Fullbring users had a huge flaw. That was the ability medium. Take Tsukishima's bookmark. If he accidentally lost it, or it was destroyed by an enemy, wouldn't his strength directly plummet? Although he didn't have such a threat, didn't other Fullbring users have such worries? Ichigo decided to ask next time. Alright. Rukia's lips moved a few times, but she didn't ask further. Chapter 284 Go to Unohana's place? But for now, I can't return to the Soul Society. Can I stay at your place for a few days? Stay at my place. Ichigo didn't immediately agree. If it were usual, he would have, but now was different. Tsukishima and Jinjo were lurking in the shadows monitoring him. Ichigo couldn't protect Rukia at all times. If Rukia stayed here, the potential danger wasn't ordinary. Not allowed? Seeing Ichigo's hesitation, Rukia felt somewhat wronged. Not to mention their long-standing bond and feelings, she couldn't return to the Soul Society because of him. How could Ichigo hesitate? Just from her tone, Ichigo knew Rukia must be having a wronged little expression. But how could he let she fall into a dangerous situation? How about sending Rukia to Captain Unohana's place? Captain Unohana was still training with Zaraki. Perfect for Rukia to also go and learn a bit, enhance her self-protection ability. If he remembered correctly, Rukia's current combat power was only a mere 48. Making up his mind, Ichigo decided to send Rukia to Unohana's place. Of course, Ichigo explained the entire cause and effect clearly, eliminating any possibility of melodramatic things happening. Tsukushin's base. After training, Ichigo and Ruruka stood together. Stay away from me. Ichigo was just leaning next to Ruruka drinking water. Ruruka Tsundere shook her head. Her purple twin tails swung, turning her head away. Ichigo's Fullbring learning was almost complete. Regarding Ruruka's character, he quite liked her. During this time, she had been wholeheartedly helping him. Most importantly, whether before or after memory restoration, Ruruka was in a friendly state towards Ichigo. She was a good person. What's wrong? Don't like me sitting next to you. Fresh from training, Ichigo was drenched in sweat, shirtless, revealing his athletic physique. Ichigo raised his arm and sniffed his armpit. No smell. Not that he was narcissistic, but this body really had no smell. Humph, stay away from me anyway. Ruruka was still somewhat uncomfortable with Ichigo's close contact. At this moment, the distance between them was only about the width of a cup. Weird. At the first meeting, she excitedly called me a hottie. Now she started disliking me. Humph. Seeing Ichigo 7 or 8 meters away, Ruruka glanced at him and snorted again. Women is really hard to understand. Ichigo took a dry towel to shower. As for Ruruka, he would definitely give her a good outcome in the end. Game, my current strength should have reached this world's peak, right? The bathroom's water heater and shower head were both broken. Ichigo had the Hogyoku absorb dozens of kilograms of water, then he heated it through the Hogyoku, pouring it over his head from above. This was his training results from this period. Not only had he opened up a bit of space inside the new Hogyoku, but the storage time for energy absorbed by the Hogyoku had also been extended. Moreover, Ichigo could freely convert these energies. Earlier, he converted the energy inside into heat to heat cold water, allowing him to take this hot shower. No. In the Bleach world, there was once an existence of level 200. Who? Ichigo was surprised. The water pouring from the Hogyoku even decreased a bit. The Soul King. Oh, right. Water flow increased again. Ichigo then remembered the linchpin of the three worlds in the Bleach world. It seems my current strength was still far from touching this world's pinnacle. The reason Ichigo suddenly asked this was because he felt his current strength was already close to this world's. T/N. I don't know what happened. This is the continuation from the chapter, without any in between. It seems like a lot of chapters are missing, but there's no explanation whatsoever. After searching for a while from the advanced chapters, I can't find anything to explain this matter, so I'm sorry to you all, but I'm dropping this series. For those who wanted to know how the story suddenly changed, you can read the chapter below. I've added a few more chapters so that you can understand why I suddenly dropped this series. Long time no see, you two. Meeting you two here can be considered us being fated enemies meeting on a narrow road. Ichigo and Rukia both heard this annoying voice not far away. Who exactly is trying to be mysterious? Have the guts to show yourself and speak. Rukia, after going through this matter, had started becoming somewhat paranoid. But Ichigo felt nonchalant, probably because Ichigo was overly confident about his own abilities. Dongwa's civilization, in our hands, is like an ant. Whenever we want this civilization to perish, it certainly cannot escape the fate of being overthrown. Sharp voices kept echoing in their minds. Illusion break. Rukia was clearly already very impatient with this sneaky behavior. She placed her finger deep inside her mouth against her tender tongue, exposed her teeth and bit her finger hard, then forcefully slashed towards the sky with the bloody index finger. Instantly, the entire sky took on a magical red hue. All right, no need for the young lady to use her ability. I previously only knew Kuchiki Rukia was the illusion queen. But what's unexpected is, breaking illusions is so simple in your eyes. As the sound grew closer, two figures slowly appeared in the distance. One was very tall and slender, the other appeared very stocky. These two formed a stark contrast at this moment. So it's you two. A trace of disdain appeared in Ichigo's eyes. Madare Mikaku? Right, what's the name of this lackey-looking person next to him? Ah, remembered Abarai Renji. Haha, these two scums actually got together, and are here bragging shamelessly. It really makes people astonished. The atmosphere between the two sides was already filled with gunpowder smell, and the kind that would ignite and explode at a touch. However, they were now on Dongwa's soil. Recently, Dongwa was implementing a ban on fighting and brawling. The issuance of such a ban proved how confident Dongwa was in its citizens. In the entire Chaos world, there's no precedent of a country letting its own citizens refuse to fight. This was the first country to do so. The ban made by Dongwa would undoubtedly become a historical beginning. Don't just talk big, if you have the guts, then come over quickly. Renji and Ikiku certainly also knew Dongwa currently had a ban. That's why they dared to act so recklessly. Behind this recklessness, every word represented an insult to this country's ban. But this was their scheme. If Ichigo and Rukia took action here, then Dongwa's ban would be completely destroyed. Every citizen of Dongwa had persisted for so long. Ichigo, we can't take action. If we do, then the ban our country issued will completely lose effect. In severe cases, we might even become the laughingstock of other countries. Rukia's voice had also begun to grow weak and very pale. Do I need you to tell me? Ichigo's voice was so cold, as if making people plummet into a bottomless abyss. Hearing this tone, Rukia quickly and tactfully shut her mouth. Ho ho, so it's just a little hamster who only knows how to fight within its own nest. Seeing Ichigo's this attitude, these two actually became increasingly aggressive. Ikaku and Renji's disgusting faces really pressed close to them. Stop right there. Rukia had also reached her limit of endurance. She certainly also knew these two's abilities were also very weak. But there was no way. Their country's ban was like this: don't cause trouble, don't provoke trouble. Ikaku and Renji actually heard a very authoritative feeling in this voice. This feeling was also very astonishing. Finally, in such a voice filled with deterrence, the two of them chose to back down. Kuchiki Rukia, that's enough. Don't let this emotion guide you. Our country seeks ultimate energy. Don't mess up our plans because of such matters. Ichigo reached out and walked towards Rukia. The two stood motionless under the sun's radiance. In such a scene, the two of them looked so mysterious, as if bearing the fate of the entire nation. The two of them walked away without looking back, as if the two behind them were nothing but air. But indeed, they were also just lackeys like air. The pressure borne by Ichigo and Rukia wasn't comparable to ordinary people. But everyone among them became extremely crazy. Finally, this madness scattered and dissipated one night. Pervading the sky was only the residual energy in each person's body. There's a restaurant ahead that looks pretty good. Rukia's dark eyes continuously flashed with elusive light. This light felt very unreliable, but she was also very agile. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten together with a dull person like Ichigo. Let's go in and sit. Waiter, 2 pots of hot tea. Coming right up, customers. Ichigo and Rukia looked around the entire restaurant. Because this restaurant was outside Dongwa's border, and the two of them were core figures of Dongwa, they are still very guarded. The entire restaurant displayed a retro feel. This feel floated in the air. Finally, in such air, some things would always surface. Although such things might not be particularly beautiful, they weren't bad either. So in such a retro environment, one could always let one's imagination run wild. Do you remember the times we trained together in the Danmachi? Ichigo always hid what he wanted to express very deeply. In such deep thoughts, he appeared very stiff overall. But his thoughts could only be guessed by Rukia. It was precisely this kind of ability that made the two of them mutually appreciate each other. From Danmachi training, they also constantly and frantically grasped their own abilities. Danmachi? Of course I remember. Such terrifying yet delightful times are always make one linger, aren't they? This is also the first time Rukia heard Ichigo initiatively mention the times of Danmachi training. This also meant Ichigo had walked out from within his own heart and completed this transformation well. Ichigo and Rukia talked about their past during Danmachi training. This past always felt very dangerous. It was in such dangerous moments that the two of them overcame themselves, making all systems submit behind the two of them. Do you remember the most brutal war between us? The corner of Ichigo's mouth twisted slightly. This was actually the past he was most unwilling to mention. Of course I remember. That war is really unforgettable for life. Rukia certainly wouldn't forget such a brutal struggle. But in their impression, such battles could happen at any time. So they always maintained vigilant thoughts. This thought was instilled in their minds. Night enveloped the sky. The entire sky above floated with grayish dust, giving a suffocating feeling. In such gloomy sky, there were two battle-scarred figures slowly walking behind them. It was precisely through such energy transmitted into their hearts. I always feel within the entire collapse system, our survival isn't reliant on our own such powerful ability. Because in such space, there will always be some people who can constantly and frantically pursue their own powerful ability within their own hearts and fates. Ichigo always felt within his inner world, this system brought to the two of them wasn't the deep ability they most desired. But in such ability, each of us is constantly and frantically pursuing our own limits. It's also the first time Rukia feeling a kind of fortune belonging to herself. Each of us constantly shuttles through such ability boundaries. When shuttling past, everything becomes so insignificant. Ichigo and Rukia also always constantly change their forward direction. Stop! A crisp sound came from ahead of them. This sound drifted within the two of them, finally at the last moment vanished into the abyss. Who is it? Rukia should have become the one closest to Ichigo from this time. But in such powerful barrier, the two of them still wanted to display their most powerful side. But reality never goes as desired. Someone that wanted to take your life. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated and Taking Over Ichigo's Body last part, and what if becoming a mangaka in One Piece World, 2 parts. Will be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next 2 projects for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if hosting Q&A in One Piece World? What if Transmigrated in Ben 10 World as Ben's cousin? What if Transmigrated in Danmachi World with the system? Please vote in the poll and let me know which stories you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.